Hi, so today we'll be talking about the IELTS listening module. I'll be sharing some of my most important tips and tricks that have helped me, and hopefully it'll help you ace the IELTS listening module. So to begin with, let's look at the four sections that the listening module comprises of. For the first section, you will hear a conversation between two speakers. This is often about making hotel reservations or making appointments, trip planning, class scheduling, and such exchange of information between two people. In section 2, you will hear just one speaker. He or she will be giving some non-academic information on events or resorts or directions. In section 3, you'll hear 3 to 4 speakers. It will be an academic discussion between students and teachers. In section 4, you'll hear one speaker giving an academic lecture. Okay, let's take a look at the question types of the listening module. So there are 7 types of question: form, note, or table completion, labeling a diagram or map, sentence completion, short answers, selection, multiple choice, and matching. So let's begin with my first tip. My first tip to you is to predict the answer when you're reading the questioning before you hear the listening clip. For instance, let's say right now they have asked you to read the questions from 27 to 30 before you listen to the listening clip. So when I'm reading the question, studying with the Open University demanded a great deal of... So you're talking about studying at a university, and I can guess that that would demand a great deal of determination. So it's just a wild, crazy guess. Since I guessed something, when I finally listen at the listening clip, it will give me a clue of what information I am trying to listen for in the clip. So I will keep my ears out for something that has to do with the motivation or determination or good grades or something like that when you're studying at the university. Similarly, I've done the second one as well. Studying and working at the same time improved Rachel's skills. So improved Rachel's blank skills. So initially, before I listened to the clip, I just wrote social because I thought it would, this was just a wild guess. But when I listened to the clip eventually, it told me that the answer is actually multitasking skills. So it's completely okay if you cross the answer and then write another answer. But predicting the answer will prepare your mind for when you listen. Okay, so next tip is read all options carefully. So the reason I say read all options carefully is because particularly for multiple type questions, as you can see in the screen, or matching questions, there's a lot of words to read. It's very time consuming. Not only do you have to choose the correct answer, you have to read every word and eliminate other answers. This takes time and is difficult to do while the listening clip is playing at the same time. Therefore, for such questions, I highly suggest that you read all the options carefully before you even begin listening the listening clip. So let's say you have some extra time. They have asked you to read between a few questions, but you have some time. Go through the multiple choice questions. Read through them very carefully. Let's look at tip number 3. Pay attention to changes in information. This usually happens in section 1 of the listening section. When you hear a conversation between two people exchanging information, let's say for hotel booking or flight reservation and things like that, they often change information suddenly, just like we do in regular conversations. For example, let's look at this information. So you hear a conversation where someone says, the next bus to downtown leaves at 5 p.m. Oh, I'm sorry, it's been delayed and will be leaving at 5:15 instead. So when you were listening to this and you were jotting down your answers, you had written 5 p.m. first. Keep your ears out to hear any corrected version of an answer or any changes. So just cross it out and write 5:15. It's okay to cross out answers in this sheet because in the end you have to transfer the answers to another sheet. So it doesn't matter how many answers you cross out. But it's very important that you pay attention to the changes. Okay, let's look at the next tip. Tip number 4. Look at 2 questions at once. Now this is a very important tip, particularly for 2 reasons. Firstly, one difficulty is that the answers to 2 questions often come quickly, one after the other. Be ready for the next question as well. And secondly, sometimes you may be waiting for the answer to one question and the dialogue may have moved on to the next question. Unless you have read the next question, you won't know if you missed the answer or not. You do not want to wait for the answer and be stuck in one place for a very long time. The problem is, if you lose track of where you are in the listening and you are still listening for question 13 when the cassette has moved on to question 15, then you have a problem. Sorry about that. So let's look at this example. The answer to question 13 and 14 came in pretty quickly. So you have to keep an eye. Unless you had read these 2 questions together, it wouldn't have been possible for you to get the answer right away. And let's say, look at question 15. You were waiting for question 15 and the answer never came. You don't want to keep waiting here. The answer never came, probably because you missed it. So you had a lapse. That's okay. If you had read 2 questions together, you would have known when you missed the answer. And you need to know this so that you don't stay stuck in one place for a very long time. Just skip one answer. Okay, tip 5. Now, tip 5 is to understand the following language for map and diagram labeling. Now, one of these sections may contain an instruction of a map or a diagram, and you would be asked to label them properly. For these kinds of questions, people generally face difficulty understanding the terms. Since this is more of a pictorial question, you need to understand what phrases like southeast, northeast means, what in front of or in the middle of or beyond, a little beyond, just past, next, alongside. The meaning of all these phrases are of great importance in solving such questions. So just go through them once. Tip number 6. If you miss 1 or 2 answers, don't panic. Just relax. Move on to the next question. Remember that each question may contain 1 or even less than half marks. If you look at the marking structure, even if you miss 2 or 3 questions, you are probably in the same band score. So don't freak out if you miss 1 or 2 questions. Tip number 7, don't leave any blank answers. You don't lose any marks for wrong answers. Just guess something from the context of the conversation at the end. Tip number 8. Trust your first instinct. What I mean by this is that oftentimes we are confused if we heard ourselves right. Sometimes the context doesn't make sense and you write something, but you're not sure which one is the right answer. Let's say, for example, there's this question that said, the study of medical science require determination. So that's the first thing you thought of, determination, but then you thought about it a little longer and then thought, oh wait, they did talk about patience too. Maybe it's patience? In such cases, the best way to go is trusting the first answer that comes to your mind. Most of the time, that's the right answer. So, okay, so tip 9. Check spellings. Oftentimes we feel that this is a listening test. Spellings are not as important, but they do have some importance. You need to take care of using capitals where and when necessary. Also, practice spelling the names of cities or common words or common names. Okay, number 10. And this is by far the most important tip that I can give you. Practice, practice, practice. I know it sounds cliche, but there is no other alternative to practicing. If you found this helpful, click subscribe. And do let me know if you need any particular area that you want me to make a video on.